As the Ukraine war nears the end of its fourth year, Ukraine continues to find new ways to hurt Russia's forces and defend itself against the hordes of soldiers and drones that are sent its way. Many of those new ways are created inside Ukraine itself, which has developed a world-leading drone manufacturing industry, in addition to building new missiles and weapons that can be used against Russia. But it never hurts when advanced Western technology enters Ukraine. And now Ukraine is on the verge of getting its hands on new US weapons that could do some serious damage. Two of those weapons, in fact. Both are ready to take to the skies and turn Russia's drones and frontline soldiers into dust. On December 2nd, United 24 Media reported that Ukraine is actively exploring the acquisition of the US-made helicopters that it's been trying to purchase for several months. Better yet, those two choppers, which are the Bell AH-1Z Viper attack helicopter and the UH-1Y Venom utility chopper, could arrive in Ukraine sooner than expected because the manufacturers of both have spare production capacity. This extra capacity has been confirmed by the vice president of Bell, Jeffrey Schlosser, who spoke to Flight Global to confirm the manufacturer's position. Defense Express reported on Schlosser's remarks, with the Bell vice president noting that his company has only one contract for the delivery of helicopters at present. According to that report, that contract will see almost $1 billion of Bell's helicopters arrive in Nigeria by 2028. And Schlosser claims that his company has the capacity to take on more than that single contract. Better yet, the company's past orders, which included building helicopters for the US Marine Corps, the Czech Republic, and Bahrain, have already been completed. This means that Bell has its manufacturing process nailed down and would therefore be able to deliver on any Ukrainian order made. The issue, as it's been for a while, is that no exact order size or delivery timeline for the new helicopters has been announced. But we'll get to that challenge in a moment. First, let's take a closer look at what Ukraine will receive if it's able to push a proposed purchase of both these new choppers through. Starting with the Viper, the Naval Air Systems Command or NAVAIR website provides the attack helicopter's basic specifications. It says that the US Marine Corps uses Vipers for a range of operations, including providing close air support to soldiers, armed escorts, and reconnaissance and anti-armor operations. The helicopter has also proven itself useful as an anti-air asset, in addition to serving as control for supporting arms. All of these indicate how Ukraine may use the Viper when it eventually finds its way to the front lines in Ukraine. The Viper features a 4-blade composite rotor system and a 4-bladed tail rotor that, when combined with a performance-matched transmission, make the chopper one of the fastest and most agile that Ukraine will have in its arsenal. It's also a lethal helicopter. The Viper has 6 wing stores for weapons and is crewed by 2 people, a pilot and a co-pilot who can also serve as a gunner. The chopper's manufacturer, Bell, offers even more details. It claims that its helicopter is engineered for the extreme, in a profile that claims the Viper enables its crew to eliminate threats at unimaginable range. Though hyperbolic as you'd expect from a profile that doubles up as a marketing document, Bell's claims aren't unfounded. Bell says that its helicopter can travel at a speed of 200 knots, which is roughly equivalent to 200 nautical miles per hour. It also has a 310 nautical mile range, meaning Ukraine can cover large portions of its territory with just a handful of these choppers. As for weapons, Bell says that the Viper's weapons bay can be loaded with a pair of Sidewinder air-to-air missiles and 16 air-to-ground missiles, with the latter being ideal for taking out Russian artillery positions and anti-aircraft equipment. The Viper also contains a smart target sight system that helps pilots identify potential targets in all weather conditions, regardless of whether it's day or night. This is a third-generation system, Bell proudly proclaims, suggesting that the system has undergone plenty of tweaks to make it as effective as possible. Bell also reveals why the US Marine Corps placed an order for this chopper, as it's designed to resist the type of corrosion caused by salt water. The Viper's components are marinized to meet US Navy specifications, the manufacturer declares, suggesting that the Viper will also be a good choice for operations that Ukraine conducts in the Black Sea. Though the Viper will inevitably grab all of the headlines due to being an attack helicopter, it's unwise to discount the role that the Venom choppers that Ukraine is also trying to purchase could play. Venoms are utility helicopters, which essentially makes them a jack-of-all-trades aerial asset. Utility helicopters can fulfill several roles, including transporting troops, overseeing logistics, serving as command and control vehicles for operations, evacuating casualties, and even providing firepower support for ground-based and aerial units. Again, the NAVAIR website provides some information about the Venom, noting that it has already replaced the UH-1N Huey in naval operations. Like the Viper, the Venom has a composite 4-bladed rotor system, which is powered by new engines and transmissions that make it superior to the older Huey. Bell has increased the helicopter's payload capabilities, implemented new crash-worthy seating for crew and passengers, and installed multifunction flat panel displays that provide all of the battlefield information that the chopper's pilots could need. Unlike the Viper, which is a comparatively lightweight chopper that keeps crew numbers to a minimum, the Venom is designed for a crew of 12 people. These 12 include a crew chief, pilot, co-pilot, and gunner. As for the rest of the 8 spots, they are all taken up by combat-equipped Marines in the US, and you have to assume that Ukraine would find a similar purpose for the chopper. Bell has also profiled its utility chopper and offers a few more details that further highlight why the Venom will be such a good addition to Ukraine's aerial arsenal. It says the Venom has a speed of 170 knots or about 170 nautical miles per hour and a range of about 325 nautical miles. An infrared sensor system built into the helicopter enables the early detection of incoming threats, enabling counterstrikes to be conducted before those threats can reach the helicopter. As for weapons, these can be tailored towards specific mission objectives, though Bell mentions an array of rockets that the Venom can fire. We also know the chopper has space for a gunner, suggesting that a gun or cannon of some description is in play. The same marinization that makes the Viper so useful for Marines is also implemented into the Venom. And an array of kits, including hoists, fast ropes, and firefighting kits, can be installed to enable the specialized operations and rapid troop deployment. The Venom offers versatility in spades, and it's a great choice either as a companion to the Viper or as a multi-role chopper supporting Ukraine's ground, aerial, and maritime operations. Oh, and there's one more thing. As United 24 Media explains, the Viper and Venom share about 85% of their components. That may not seem like a big deal until you realize that the cross-chopper compatibility of these components drastically simplifies the maintenance and logistics required to keep both helicopters in the air. If it works on the Venom, it will likely work on the Viper and vice versa. Ukraine benefits from only needing a single source for most of its chopper parts, which ultimately amounts to Ukraine being able to keep both helicopters in the air for longer periods. It all sounds very impressive. However, you may remember the caveats we mentioned earlier in the video. There is no order size or amount confirmed by either Ukraine or Bell yet, and the purchase of these choppers has yet to be officially finalized. But that purchase is getting there. In a November 1st report, technology.org revealed that Ukraine has already taken the first steps to getting its hands on both of these helicopters by delivering letters of intent. Those letters have already been signed by representatives from Ukraine and Bell, and we can only assume that those letters contain the as-of-yet unrevealed details of exactly what Ukraine wants to buy. As technology.org says, it seems like the decisions have been made. LOIs, letters of intent, have been signed, and both the Viper and Venom will likely come to Ukraine. Getting to this stage was a long time coming for Ukraine. Though the LOIs were signed at the beginning of November, Ukraine had expressed interest in the Viper at least over a year ago. In September 2024, Defense News reported that Ukraine had inquired about 12 Vipers that Slovakia had rejected earlier in the year. That rejection doesn't appear to have anything to do with the chopper's quality. Rather, a new Slovakian cabinet had become wary of the previous government's decision to purchase the 12 Vipers and was rethinking the decision. Slovakia also seemed to hope that it could convince the US to apply a discount, which would have seen the Vipers sold for $340 million to the previous Slovak government, to other American weapons systems such as anti-air defenses and F-16s. Ukraine didn't care about the reasons. It just knew that a chance to get its hands on a very useful helicopter had arisen. Vadim Ivchenko, who was a Ukrainian lawmaker with the Batyvshchina political party, explained how useful the Vipers could be to Ukraine at the time. "We need these helicopters for our soldiers who are fighting on the front line in the Ukrainian provinces of Donetsk, Zaporizhia, and other regions, but also leading an operation in the Kursk region," Ivchenko declared. Ivchenko even wrote a letter to the Biden administration requesting that Ukraine be considered for the helicopters, though it seems that nothing came from that letter. Fast forward a year, and letters of intent have been signed for a new deal, with Defense Express revealing that the agreement between Bell and Ukraine includes an evaluation of approaches to industrial cooperation, in addition to notes about Bell's cooperation with the US government in the sale. And the mention of the US government reveals one of two different barriers that may stand in the way of Ukraine transforming its intent to purchase Venom and Viper helicopters into a reality where the two choppers are operating in Ukrainian airspace. As Defense Express explains, it should be noted that for arms purchases from the US, the agreement is not made directly with the manufacturer, but between the governments. In other words, Ukraine must sign an agreement with the US government, which will order the helicopters from Bell. So Ukraine has the barrier of US acceptance to overcome, meaning it can't simply strike a deal with Bell itself to buy the Venom or Viper. That US governmental acceptance raises a big question mark about the future of Ukraine's intended purchase. On one hand, as Ukraine Business News reported on September 8th, the US and Ukraine are negotiating a potential weapons purchase framework worth up to $100 billion, rather than the US having already granted formal permission for such a purchase. Under this proposed framework, Ukraine could gain access to large quantities of American weapons, while the United States would receive certain ownership or licensing rights to select Ukrainian defense technologies, conditions that are still being discussed and have not been finalized. For Washington, even the prospect of such a deal represents a significant strategic and economic advantage. It would channel tens of billions of dollars into the US defense sector, while potentially expanding America's control over Ukrainian innovations that could be commercially or militarily valuable in the future. Ukraine has not formally accepted the deal and no agreement has been enacted. Instead, UBN notes that Kyiv has already purchased roughly $2 billion worth of American weaponry through existing channels prior to the publication of its article, separate from the proposed $100 billion framework. Still, the contours of the negotiations make clear that the US expects more than financial payment alone, suggesting that if Ukraine wants to secure access to high-demand platforms such as the Viper and Venom, it may need to offer technological cooperation in addition to funds. But on the other hand, Ukraine can't always be certain that the US will be willing to play ball when it comes to weapons purchases. That may be especially the case now that the US has launched a renewed effort to force through a Ukraine war peace plan. We won't go into the details of America's initial plan here. You can watch our video that details all 28 points if you want to learn more. But we will mention that the first draft of the plan was surprisingly pro-Russian. Meetings between the US and Ukraine have since been held, and the plan has been redrafted. However, envoys from the United States are also meeting with Putin in Moscow as we create this video, which raises the possibility that the US could take a less pro-Ukraine stance in the future. A lot is riding on those talks with Putin. If America decides to acquiesce to Putin's demands, thus placing more pressure on Ukraine, it's possible that America could retract the permission it had granted Ukraine to buy US weapons. Ukraine has to juggle with these kinds of possibilities, and it needs the US to stay on its side to make the purchases of the Viper and Venom choppers possible. All of these mentions of money brings us to the second potential barrier. The Venom and Viper helicopters aren't exactly cheap. It's difficult to determine how much Ukraine will be asked to spend on these helicopters, especially given that we have no details about the order size. However, United 24 Media suggests that whatever funding mechanism Ukraine uses for the deal will still require it to come up with around $1 billion for the purchase. The outlet references Slovakia's cancellation of the 12 Viper choppers, which it said ultimately resulted in the country buying 12 Black Hawks rather than the F-16s mentioned earlier. United 24 Media also discusses the 2019 purchase of Vipers and Venoms made by the Czech Republic. That deal cost the Czech government $622 million, which is a little over $800 million when adjusted for inflation in 2025. The implication here is that Ukraine could jump into Slovakia's manufacturing slot at Bell, meaning it will be buying at least 12 helicopters. So a $1 billion outlay doesn't seem too ambitious. It's also well within the $100 billion scale of the proposed US-Ukraine arms framework that is currently being negotiated. Further credibility for the $1 billion figure comes from a December 1st report by Bloomberg. The outlet says that Ukraine just so happens to be seeking €1 billion, or around $1.2 billion, in additional European funding by the end of 2025, with that money to be spent on US weapons purchases. Alyona Getmanchuk, who is Ukraine's ambassador to NATO, said, "We will be extremely grateful for the new contributions from allies so Ukraine will be able to receive equipment through Pearl uninterruptedly." It all seems to add up. Ukraine will likely need $1 billion for its purchases of Viper and Venom choppers, and Ukraine is seeking about that amount of money right now from its European partners. Let's assume that the two barriers we've just discussed pose no problems for Ukraine. The US says yes to the purchases, and Ukraine gets its hands on the money. We still don't know the manufacturing timescale Bell would require, as it could take several years to build such a large batch. Still, if Ukraine gets these choppers, what would it end up using them for? We mentioned that Ukraine could use the Venom and Viper to turn Russia's frontline forces into dust. That is the case, especially as both helicopters offer air-to-surface options. However, Ukraine's main use of helicopters right now seems to be more defensive. As Business Insider reported on October 1st, Ukraine has increasingly leaned on its helicopter crews to help it deal with the hundreds of drones that Russia is launching into Ukraine's airspace. These crews are shooting down up to 40% of the drones in their regions, helped by the advanced sensors they have that allow them to operate in all weather conditions. Both the Venom and Viper have these sensors, in addition to rockets, air-to-air munitions, and guns that could prove useful in drone defense. And Ukraine definitely needs more in the air defense department. Russia's drone assaults have been growing more intense as we draw close to the end of 2025. As ABC News revealed in a November article, Russia sent 5,312 drones Ukraine's way in October, and Ukraine only managed to shoot down around 80% of them. Helicopters as capable as the Venom and Viper patrolling Ukraine's skies could help to bring that interception rate up. Russia certainly isn't slowing down with its aerial assaults. November 29th saw it launch almost 600 drones into Ukraine on a single night. killing at least 3 and leaving dozens more injured, Euronews reports. That's the scale of the Russian drone strikes that Ukraine is now being forced to confront. Helicopters that carry all of the tools needed to minimize the effects of these aerial assaults will be a very welcome addition to Ukraine's arsenal. However, Ukraine also has the option of using Venom and Viper choppers in an offensive capacity. Back in March 2023, GUNSHIPS revealed that Ukraine had been using its helicopters to handle resupplying troops on the ground and evacuation, both of which are tasks at which the Venom in particular excels. Ukraine's pilots also prefer to fly at night, which both the Venom and Viper enable. This nighttime flying opens up the possibility of Ukraine using Vipers to launch aerial assaults against Russian command posts, troop gatherings, artillery positions, and even air defense units, without Russia being any the wiser until the rockets and missiles come raining down. We also can't underestimate the Venom's ability to act as a transport helicopter. On November 1st, Reuters reported that Ukraine claimed to have landed a Black Hawk helicopter filled with Special Forces soldiers into the embattled city of Pokrovsk. Russia claimed to have killed all of those soldiers, of course, but that was an unconfirmed claim. The important snippet here is that Ukraine is actively transporting some of its best soldiers to the hottest regions of the front lines using helicopters. The Venom will be a huge asset if this is a tactic that Ukraine continues to pursue, as it can transport up to 8 soldiers at a time. Vipers might even be able to offer those Venom helicopters fire support, ensuring the safe delivery of soldiers in such a use case. Both of these US-made helicopters could prove vital for Ukraine. With the letters of intent both signed and sealed by Ukraine and Bell, all that needs to happen now is the US granting its stamp of approval and Ukraine ensuring it has the funds to afford the Venom and the Viper. If both of those barriers are overcome, Russia may soon have hell to deal with due to a pair of choppers, the likes of which it's yet to encounter in Ukraine. Speaking of things that Russia has yet to encounter, Putin's hybrid attacks throughout Europe have pushed NATO to the point where it's now prepared to strike first. This complete change in NATO doctrine has taken Russia by surprise, and you can find out all about it in our video. And if you enjoyed this video, remember to subscribe to The Military Show for more videos covering the latest weapons that Ukraine intends to use to defend itself against Russia. And thank you, as always, for watching.